We're talking about knowledge now. Knowledge which is not intended to feed the life of the intellect is considered dead. So when you go to school, or when you turn on the television, or when you listen to certain kinds of music that does not contribute to the proper development of your intellect, as Allah created that intellect, if it does not contribute to the development of that intellect, that knowledge is considered dead. It's called a mate or matun in the Quran. Death. Mate. And Allah says, do not eat of dead meat. You see the word meat in English? It comes from the Arabic word mate. Because by the time you get it, it's dead. Nobody I know running around here eating livestock. Livestock. By the time it hits your dinner plate, it's dead. So the wise people of this world said, well, we'll just call that what that's called in the Quran. That's meat. It's dead. Now, the intellect comes alive only when fed from the Fitrah of the natural environment. That's the only life for your intellect. When the perception of the natural environment is distorted, the mind becomes disconnected from its original energy source and dies. You remember the Matrix? That's part of what they were talking about. They disconnected his mind from the virtual scenario, and he was out of there. He was right. They had to catch him before he died. So it's the perception of the natural environment. When it becomes distorted, the mind is disconnected from its original source. Deformed perception is what we're talking about now. Deformed perception leads to the dissipation of healthy social standards. Because social standards depend on one's ability to think in the interest of the group. I'm going to say that again. Deformed perception leads to the dissipation of healthy social standards. What did we say the social nature was represented by as a symbol? The blood. The blood is a symbol of your social nature. When your social nature is no longer working to improve the life of your community. Now, those of us in association with Imam Muhammad, listen to this very carefully. When our social aspirations are no longer working to improve the life of our own community, it is the same as what the Quran calls blood being poured forth. Allah says, do not eat of meat of which blood is poured forth. That means you cut that thing or you hit that thing, right? Do not partake of the blood that is separated, that finds itself now separated from the life. And what's interesting for us as African Americans in the Muslim experience or paradigm is that our social life pours forth to invigorate just about everybody else except us.
That's right.
We were at a very beautiful event yesterday at the Apollo Theater. Muslim artists from around the country performing at the Apollo. That was a precedent. And the house was packed. Alhamdulillah. But what people should remember if they don't know it, or should know if they didn't know it, is that the ability of Muslim young artists, particularly, to perform music and proper dance and speech, whether it's rap or whatever it is, poetry or except, that effort began in the association of Imam W.D. Muhammad. But it is now mostly among the immigrant Muslims. Native Deen and this one and that one. While we were doing what we were doing back in the late 70s and early 80s and so forth, many of their fathers and mothers were saying bid'ah. You can't sing in Islam. There's no music in Islam. How can you sing, sister? They're not supposed to hear your voice. Brother, you move your hips. That is not Islam. Well, they just counted out the whole damn continent of Africa with that one, right? They just erased your whole culture with that one statement that Islam doesn't support music and musical expression or cultural expression. But something happened within the interim period during the 80s into the 90s into these 2000s that caused a shift in their paradigm, in their thinking paradigm. And what happened was their exposure to our community. I'm talking about our community under Imam W.D. Muhammad. We were persistent. We said there's nothing un-Islamic about it. We just have to refine it. It's not everything it should be, but it ain't what the world is giving us. So we just have to refine it. And now the immigrant brothers and sisters are in that same stage where they have something wonderful to present to the world, culturally speaking, but it has to be refined. But the ones who are in the best position to help them refine it is still us. But we're looking at them like they invented this. Because why? Our social blood, we keep partaking of blood that has been poured forth. It's not serving the interest of the body, our body.
Yes.
Animals do the mate and dance. Animals do the mate and dance.
It's in the Fitrah. Yeah, animals have expression, cultural expression. It's in the Fitrah. So what I'm saying is, our community, our association, we need to look very seriously at maintaining and advancing our unique cultural expression as Imam Muhammad gave us the pattern for it.
Yes.
He said take the best of what Saudi is doing and the best of what is going on in certain areas of Africa, the beats and the rhythms and so forth, and come out with your own unique expression and present that on the stage. How did he say? On the world stage, to the world stage. So the angels asked, are you going to create a Khalifa who is going to make mischief and shed the blood? Why was that a concern? Because blood is not supposed to operate outside of the body. And our blood has poured forth to everybody outside of our body, starting with the white man. And we couldn't help that. That was slavery. And then it was Jim Crow. And then it was just us being unconscious of our real life. But we have the Quran now in the life of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What's the problem? Why are we still doing that? All right. When the blood pours forth from the body dies. In scriptural language, that is called being dumb. D-U-M-B. The word blood in Arabic is dam. D-A-M. Dam. D-A-M. Dam. In English, they added a silent B and called it dumb. If somebody says you are playing dumb, it means that you are pretending to not know or not have life. Because if you have no knowledge, you have no life. You are dead. And keep in mind, Allah called that first creature Adam. Adam. See, you're not supposed to just be damned. You were supposed to be the children of Adam. But they took the I off and left you as a damned creature. Damned means cursed. Because your social life is no longer serving the interest of your body. That's a curse. Remember Muhammad told us years ago, he said, we are cursed people.
That's right.
All your creativity goes out to serve other people's interests and fill other people's coffers and pocketbooks. That's the blood poured forth that we're not supposed to partake of. So in Western society, they call it the dumbing down process. They said that America is experiencing a dumbing down of the masses. Now, how is that in a country that is so academically in tune? Schools for everyone, free education. But at the same time, there's a dumbing down process? That means that education must mean something much more than what we're getting in these schools. And it also means that what we're getting in these schools must be in some way contributing to that dumbing down process. Therefore, the need for a new learning environment, Fitrah based. Now, when blood pours forth, it ceases to become liquid, and it becomes what? Solid, coagulated, material. Do you see what Allah is saying? He is saying that when you do not maintain the integrity of your own social life within your own community, when it leaves your interests, when it leaves your community body and goes out into the world, it feeds other people's material interests. And that's exactly what is happening. People are making plenty of money off of our creativity. Yes. Yes, sir. This way, the question is asked in relationship to what I just said about the pouring forth of our social blood and our tendency to allow others to benefit from our social nature and the things that we create in the social environment. The best thing to do is stick to the prototype or the fitrah that Allah gives us in His description of Adam. Because that prefix A is the protection for the dam. And I'm going to explain that very quickly. Adam, you already know that dam means blood. And you already know that blood represents your social nature. So that should let you know that Adam represents the social nature in man. But what is directing his social nature? Whatever that prefix represents is what's doing that. And the A simply represents spirit. Follow this carefully. A is the sound that every newborn infant makes, no matter what language, no matter what geography that infant is born in. When it comes into this world and it breathes the breath of this world, this environment, it lets out a scream, ah, ah, and it's a breath. And breath represents spirit. And Allah says about this Khalifa, because the angels had their questions, Allah said, no. However, when I have breathed into him of my ruh, my spirit, then the dam will be qualified. I don't want you to follow him just as blood. I don't want you to follow him just because he's creative, socially speaking, or he's making social contributions. You are going to bow down to this creature when I have qualified that social nature of his with my inspiration. So now if you want to follow us, then you are safe. See, then Adam becomes a safe entity for you to emulate. because he represents the balance between your spiritual nature and your social nature, not just your social nature. Your social nature by itself is what happened in communist Russia and communist China. In fact, they were called socialist nations, right? And they canceled out the idea of a spiritual nature for human beings that should respond to a God. They didn't believe publicly in God. And they disavowed the human being as a spiritual creature. They acknowledged the human being only as a creature of social dynamics and material dynamics. And in less than 70 years, one of them was wiped out. But here we are, given the best of the balance that the Quran teaches, because the Quran is teaching us spiritual as well as social development and how they work together. It doesn't isolate the one from the other. That's why Allah speaks against the priesthood in the Quran. The monk, he said, Allah did not ordain monk life for the people, because monk life represents the separation of your spiritual nature from your social nature. If you tell me you're in a religion and you're a priest who doesn't marry and doesn't have children, you're saying, I don't want anything to do with the social life, because that's what represents the perpetuation of social life. Marriage, family life, and progeny. I don't want anything to do with that. I'm too busy in the mountains communicating to God for you, you sinner. I'm the pure one. I'm over here on the spirit side. You over there on the social side. You are damned. That's what they're saying in their secret language. D-A-M, D-A-M, silent N. What's the difference? Pronounced the same. It's saying that those who do not recognize their spiritual nature and those who don't have direct communication with God, they are damned. But they create a society like that de-emphasizes religion. They are now just starting to re-promote religion. Go see the movie Book of Eli. They're trying now, they're trying to resuscitate a dead body. But the movie is feeding them artificial spirit. On the surface. Beneath the surface, they're feeding them Quranic logic. Go see the movie. I won't say anything more about it. All right. Now, I have to move a little more quickly because we have some other points to cover. Now, in the Quran, in Surah 4, verse 34. Surah 4, verse 34. Allah says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ar-rijalu qawwamuna ala nisaa. Very popular and important statement. Translated by Yusuf Ali, men are the protectors and maintainers of women. An idea that has been distorted in and of itself in terms of all of its ramifications. Why is that? بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم. Because Allah has given the one more, and then they put in brackets, strength, than the other. And he doesn't stop to qualify what area this strength is in. And because they support them from their means. Now, it's still a beautiful translation. It is just not the most extensive translation, especially regarding the situation in the world today when we think about sexism and chauvinism. There needs to be more explanation. Now, Ar-rijal, they translate that as the men. The men. And rijal, when you look it up in the dictionary, that's what it will say. It means a man, or the men. From the verb rajala. Rajala. And rajala is connected to the idea of the feet. F-E-E-T. the feet, which itself is not a complete definition. Imam Muhammad said on many occasions that Rajal means leg. And I'm sure those of you who have followed his language closely know that he didn't say feet. He never said feet as a definition, and he had access to the dictionaries and everything else. He said it means the leg. Now, when you look up anatomy-wise, the description of the leg includes the foot. Just like the arm includes the hand. But you live in a society, an academic environment that separates everything that is supposed to be naturally connected. And it becomes reflected in the knowledge that they produce. What is a foot without a leg? Yeah. They didn't want you to get that connection. See, that's your L. That's another lamb. That leg connected to the foot, if you look at it as a pictograph, that's another L in English and in Arabic. And they didn't want you walking with two lambs. They didn't want you walking with a double lamb. Okay? You know, in the word intelligence, there's a double lamb, right? They don't want you with a double lamb. So they just gave you the foot. They just gave you something that'll just stand, but not move. Yeah. Stand up as a Muslim, you African Americans, but we don't want you making any movement. We just want you righteous. We just want you to be good and make your prayers. But move forward, can't have it. All right. So let's look at this for a moment, please. And bear with me, please, online. Very important points that we're going over today. And it takes time. And, you know, listen, there ain't a football game or walk in the park that's more important than what we're having right now. You know, if your wife is looking at you like, baby, you know, where's our time? Tell her, put your phone on speakerphone and say, this is where we're going. Praises be to Allah. That's right. And I would assume that there are some wives who are listening whose husbands are out doing something they ain't got no business. They should call the husband. Use your other cell phone. Call your husband. Tell him come home from, you know, Lowe's or Kmart or wherever he's at. Or give him the number and let him dial in and listen. This is good food. So, look now. Here's what I want to say about the Arabic language. And please, please, please be patient with this and follow this. And if you don't get it, don't worry about it. In a couple of weeks, you're going to be rolling with this. You will understand what I'm saying in a couple of weeks, especially if you get access to this on DVD or CD. And play it, but just play it back and take more notes, and you're going to get this. Because Allah has designed my presentation so that you understand it, even if you don't have any knowledge of Arabic. Now, Raja, I tell you that language did not begin as triconsonantal roots. Words did not begin as triconsonantal roots. No man on earth, no woman on earth learned to speak by uttering 3 syllables at a time. How do I know? Because Allah gives you the picture of man's history and development every time a baby is born. When that baby says, ah, that's one sound. And it's a vowel, not a consonant. Vowels are those sounds, vowels are sounds that can be produced in the mouth without the mouth having to connect with itself. Remember we talked about that at the beginning? That a consonant represents those sounds of articulation in the mouth that depend on the mouth touching itself.
Yes.
Right? Touching the tongue on the teeth, the back of the throat, the lips. Right? But a vowel represents sounds, ah, eh, oh, your mouth doesn't have to touch. And no consonant can be expressed without the aid of a vowel. And just so that you'll know, vowels are considered feminine because they're oval. They're open. The round symbol or any enclosed symbol is considered feminine, whereas the consonants are considered masculine. So what is the connection? See, that's why your women are not supposed to just be in any environment, because there are some things in the environment that represent a detriment, and she is not supposed to, quote unquote, touch them or be in connection with them, because she is open. How is she open? If she is damaged by environmental negative influences, who is she coming home to share that damage with? You and your children. Allah put her, on the most part, over the development of the children. So now she's got to share her frustration, her stress, her anguish, her disappointment, her depression. Now that's going to influence the children because she was much more open to that than the male. The male, he'll get cursed out in the street and just keep it moving. Oh, that's just Joe. Female will get cursed out in the street and she'll remember that for the next 100 years. Because Allah created her to be a creature that remembers much. The term Maryam in the Quran means memory. And in fact, if you just interchange the letters in the English transliteration, you almost have, except for maybe one letter, you'll have the word memory from Maryam. M-A-R-Y-A-M. You can also say M-A-R-Y-O-M. Doesn't matter. Maryam. M-E-M-O-R-Y. Memory. You think they didn't get that from Maryam's name? Because they know that she represents genetic memory as it is established in nature. That nature has DNA that communicates with your DNA. And when the two match up, Jesus is born.
Yes, sir.
The light. Yeah. And he speaks from the cradle. You don't have to wait until he's grown. Our association under Imam Muhammad, we didn't have to wait until we were grown to begin speaking intelligently to people. We ain't grown yet. But we are speaking some of the most intelligent speech that the world has ever. We spoke so intelligently that a man became president of the United States based on the phrase, remake the world. Yeah, that's how deep that rabbit hole goes. All right, let's get back to the focus here. So, nobody spoke 3 syllables initially. It was 1, then 2, like the baby says, da, right? You telling the baby, say daddy, right? You know, the man, he always wants to say daddy. Then say da. And then maybe a day later, 2 days later, da, da, right? 2 syllables. And then you can't shut them up after that, right? Da, 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 da. Oh, okay, enough. Right? But it was 1 first, it was sequential. 1, then 2, then 3, and so forth, right? That's how language began. So when they present to us triliteral roots in Arabic, understand that they are giving you generational definitions, meaning they're not giving you original definitions for these words. They're giving you definitions that appeared after several generations of these words being in use and being connected to other letters. So, raja, la, ra, jim, lam. And you already know that ra represents movement, right? All right. So, if I say rijal, jal is already a word. Jal is a word already. And the ra was connected to it. Jalla means to run across. Like you see the Africans who run the what do you call it?
Marathon.
The marathon? Yeah. Where they run across the whole country. Kenya and these places, right? Hey, you see like two sticks, right? Here's two lambs just running, right? That's jala. It means to ramble. It means to just roam. So, what do we know for sure? That to run across and to ramble, you need legs. So jala, without the jal, the jal part by itself means that which can only be done with the aid of your legs. And the ra just represents the rapid movement of that. So why is this connected to the word for man or for males? Because the male has been freed to roam, whereas the female has been tied down due to pregnancy and other biological issues, physiological issues. So the hunter-gatherers in history were not females. The one who was running out there hitting the bison in the head right, and bringing that home, that was the male doing that because he had legs. He was Raja. He was Rijal. He could move quick. He could hide. He could throw a spear. He could run after the game. He could wrestle the game down. Jalla, right? Now, your leg, look at the word, L-E-G, also represents your logic. You see the L and the G in logic? Because they get the word logic from the study of the leg. Your leg has its own logic. Your leg is technically not an actual part of your body. Now I want you to dream with me for a minute. Your two legs are extensions that are designed to support your body. Torso, arms, head. You follow that?
Yes.
You can live without your legs.
Yes, sure.
You can live without your arms, actually. But the heart, you got to have that, right? The lungs, you got to have that. All these vital organs, your stomach, right? Alimentary systems, all these other systems, these are just limbs. These arms and these legs, just limbs that you can do without. But you cannot make the same kind of progress independently without them. You have to ask for help if you don't have legs, or get the help of a wheelchair or some outside apparatus to help you get to where you're going, correct? All right. All right. Now, I told you that your moral and rational mind, or moral and rational thinking, are like the two legs of your body, so says Imam W.D. Muhammad.
Yes.
Now, there are some people who do not function based on moral and rational logic. And I told you that if your moral and rational mind are not operating, you are not definitively human. You are subject just to your regular animal instincts and passions. But you can't make human progress.
Right.
So in the same way that your legs are an extension of your basic body, your moral and rational mind are an extension out of your instinct body. They crown your instinctive body so that your instinctive body has a protection. You understand? The instinctive and the emotional body now has a protector and a provider. Does that sound familiar? Right? It has a protector and a provider so that your emotions do not succumb to outside influences that will take advantage of it. Take advantage of your instinct. We have an instinct to buy, right? To look nice.
Yes.
We have an instinct to feel good. To placate that sense that wants to just be in pleasure mode. Well, your moral and your rational mind protects that. So when Allah says that Arijalu Kawamuna ala Nisa, He's also addressing that phenomenon in you. That the two legs of moral and rational life in you are the maintainers and protectors of the emotional and instinctive life in you. That's Nisa. Yeah. Yeah, that Nisa, they call it the women, and Nisa. Yeah, and Nisa. It's not just the female. It's not just the female. It's talking about a phenomenon that Allah created in your Fitrah. And if you don't understand that connection between how your moral and rational legs, in this case called Arijal, the two legs, are over, right? Kawamuna ala, over, and nisa. We think it just means men are supposed to dominate women. No, it means that your moral and rational logic are supposed to dominate your instinctive and emotional urges. Alhamdulillah. Now, the opposite of that is when your emotional and instinctive life override your moral and rational logic and put it to sleep. Right? When that happens, that is what the Bible depiction of Cain slaying Abel represents. Right? Abel represents your ability. You see the word Abel in it, ability? Right?
Right.
Yeah. So next to Abel, A-B-E-L, put sense ability. You see that word sensibility?
Yeah, yeah.
That's what it means.
Sense and sense.
It means the ability in your senses. Your five senses have an ability. It has a potential. And this world designs its logic to kill your potential as a sense creature. Because when you use your senses, you need your moral and rational logic for that. When you use your instinct, you don't need your senses. Not on the same level. Not on the same level. All right? So put Abel, A-B-E-L, and sense ability. So going back to the Quran, to tie it in, again, when the angels asked, are you going to make one who will, or create one who will make mischief and shed the blood? The shedding of the blood in the Quran, in that context, is speaking to the verse in the Bible concerning Abel being slain by his brother Cain. Because Abel, right, represents the blood poured forth. And you can see the corresponding letters. In blood, BL, it begins, right? And you see the BL in Abel, there's your connection. And it says that his brother hit him in the head and his blood soaked the earth. That's the Bible.
Right.
Genesis. His blood soaked the earth. His blood went out to the world. But it was no longer of benefit to him. And his brother Cain did that. Yeah, his brother Cain. And you know, in this world, when they want to sedate you, they give you Novocaine. And the brothers on the street, they're dealing with the cocaine. So that should tell you that Cain, whatever it is, it represents a desensitizer. It represents, what do you call that? What's the word? Anesthesia. Yeah, you see that? Cain represents an anesthesia of types. And the Bible itself tells you that Adam was put into a deep sleep, and then Eve was created from the rib, right? Because, so what's the logical deduction from that? That among his progeny was one who specialized in deep sleeps. And in putting people to sleep. He put his brother to sleep permanently. Hit him in the head, took him out. Even Muhammad said that actually represents the first crucifixion in the Bible. Not Jesus. Abel. But it's the killing off of your ability, your natural ability. Now, so you have sensibilities, but there is also sensitivities. You have sensitivities. Write the words sense activity. And then put the word sensitivity. That's where that comes from.
Sense.
Yes.
Sensitivity.
Sense activity. And remember that Muhammad the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, take charge of 5 before 5 do you in. Right? So if you take charge of your sense abilities, your sensitivities will not do you in. Because sensitivity only means activity within the senses. But your senses need guidance. Your senses need direction. So, now, we were talking about Rajal or Rijal, the males, the men. Right? Rijal. All right. Now, and I told you that the word jala by itself, jala means to run across, to ramble. And it is in reference to processes in the intellect. It is in reference to how logic works in the human mind. And logic and leg are related. Look at the letters. Consonantal connections we're talking about. Religion. Religion. Also related to logic. Also related to leg. Also related to legacy. Religion. It means to realign or to put ligaments back together, to reconnect ligaments. Ligaments are natural connections in the body, tissue connections in the body. That's what religion is supposed to be doing. It is supposed to be reconnecting you with your natural life. All right? All right. So, alaikum assalam. You know what's... I understand. We'll be patient. You know, there used to be a saying, or there is a saying that says that God protects both fools and babes. But understand that in the day of Deen, God only protects babes. The fools, they're on their own in the day of Deen. Because there's no more excuse for the fools. The light is too bright. So they're going to be judged just like the ones who had the information. Because God is going to ask them, what stopped you from being informed? What stopped you from understanding what intelligent life is and living it? Back in the days before there was public education and free information, if a fool had an excuse. But not in this day and time. Yeah, all right. Yeah. So, the term in the Quran, Jalut. J-A-A-L-O-O-T. Jalut. Jaaloot. That is the name that is translated into the English language as Goliath. Goliath. And it is in reference to the extremes of logic. When logic just dominates the scene, but in an extreme way that doesn't even allow for emotional expression. You understand? See, these are lessons in the Quran for those interested in proper human development. Do not let your logic become a Goliath. And the only thing that was able to stop that creature in the Bible was David and his 5 smooth stones. So he had to get his sense body back, right? Yeah, he had to get back to his 5 senses in order to destroy the extremes of logic. Iblis, which is my next point, was one who succumbed to the extremes within his own logic. He truly believed that he was more of a rightful ruler than this Khalifa that Allah was about to bring into existence. And he allowed his extreme or inflated logic to dominate his emotional body and begin to make emotional decisions regarding what he was going to do regardless of what Allah says or said. And that became a problem for Iblis. Iblis represents the beginning of the corruption in the environment. When your environment begins to become corrupt, now I'm talking about your individual environment, your home environment, your community environment. When those areas begin to experience corruption, all of those ideas are connected to the concept of Iblis in the Quran. He said, I will come from before them, from behind them, from their right and from their left. That's your environment. That's your environment. And we're going to show you the logical progression of that Iblis mentality in Pharaoh. And we will conclude on that note or with that concept. That's right. Iblis is what is called Pharaoh. Fir'aun. Fir'aun is the logical progression of the Iblis mentality or syndrome. I call it the Iblis syndrome. When you allow your individual environment, beginning with you, your own thoughts, your own feelings, when you allow those things to become corrupt, the natural outgrowth of that, if it is unchecked, is the corruption of your immediate environment, and then eventually and historically down the line, the surrounding environment. It's like a plague that will eventually take on more and more depth and width. You got it? All right? All right. So how does this happen? It happens because we become inflated. It happens because the logic takes on too much ego. And Iblis's logic took on so much ego that he actually believed that he knew better than Allah. He didn't say that in words, but he said that in deed. that I know better than Allah. And he's telling this to Allah in the depiction. I'm going to show you that this person you are in the process of creating is not the one who should be ruling. I'm better than him. That's what Iblis said. I'm better than him. And he began to say, why? He said, because you created me from fire, and you created him from clay. Theme, called theme. And we have a whole group of people called teenagers, right? Yeah, you see this English language? Allah calls teen the beginning of a creation. This world calls teen an intermediary group, which tells me that the objective in creating this teenager was to create a whole group of people who would be based on the clay principle. Based on the clay principle, meaning I'm going to take this group, I'm going to carve this group out from the general body of humanity, and I'm going to shape them for my scheme. That's what Satan does. Because nowhere else in the world, except for the Western world, is there such a thing called a teenager. You understand? Only in did you see Roots?
Yes.
Listen, Kunta Kinte, there were no teenage years for Kunta Kinte. He went from puberty to manhood. The Jews, they have a bar mitzvah when the boy is 13. Ain't no teenage years for that boy. He goes from puberty into adult responsibility with the help or supervision of other adults. Where the teenager, how they not sell teenage years to themselves, but sell us teenage years. A whole period from 13 to 19, where our youth are supposed to be just trying to find themselves, figure out what they want to do. Their children know what they want to do. They're told what they're going to do. You're going to be a doctor. You're going to be a lawyer. You're going to be an accountant. They know that at 5, 6, 7 years old. And they buy them the kinds of toys and things that will incite that desire in them to do those things when they reach age. But here we are with PlayStation. Here we are with stuff that only incites in us murder, mayhem, and destruction. And we're allowing our children and their minds to be formed by this unnatural, overly aggressive mind that says kill for no good reason, just want to see blood. And you take a child like that and send them to school, and many of these teenagers are going to school and are fearful of even making it home at 3 o'clock, come 3 o'clock, because of the gang violence, the threats, if you don't want to be a part of their clique. But they've conditioned this section of humanity for that by creating an artificial insert called teenager. The teenage section of humanity was created as a commercial thing to sell products to. They had to first take this group, carve them out, take them out from under the auspices of the parents and the influences of the parents so that they wouldn't listen to it. They put all kinds of things in the culture so that the teenagers feel so grown up that they won't even listen to their parents. Now the Satan can come in and sell them anything. And they haven't had the exposure to the world to know what to guard themselves from.
True.
So Allah puts the anecdote in the Quran when he says, and do not even say to your parents, oof. Like, fee on you. Get away from me. I don't even want to talk to you. That's how children talk to their parents. I don't even want to talk to you. You think they're talking to their friend. They're talking to their mama. Talk to the hand. Yeah, tell their mother, talk to the hand. What kind of stuff is that? If that was my mother, my hand would be missing. If I ever said to my mother, talk to the hand, put my hand in front of her face, my hand would be missing.
Missing extremities.
Like the book,
Yeah.
like the book of Eli.
Yeah, boy, we're not going to get that movie away. Well, yeah. All right. So, The point is, that's what a teenager is. They decided to create a whole group of people who will be based on the clay principle, meaning you can shape it the way you want to shape it. And if you put enough fire to it, enough heat to it, it will dry in that shape and stay in that mold. And the only way to get it out of that mold is to break it. That's exactly what the teenagers are. That's exactly what they've created in most of our teenagers. Something that if you want to change it, you gotta come with a sledgehammer now. Because they don't listen to reason. They are locked into a world and to language and slang and all of that. That is a whole nother world that was created by Satan himself. And I mean, this is not a thing against our teenagers. This is something that I'm sharing with you so that the wide awake ones among you will get on the good foot and do what's proper to wake up the rest of your group. Because you are supposed to be at 13 and 14 and 15 ready to take over the reins of leadership. We're not supposed to be going until 65, 70. Imam Muhammad 74, still running around the world like he's a teenager. That 13-year-old, that 15-year-old, that 18-year-old was supposed to say, Imam, listen, we got technology now. Tell you what, you sit in the comfort of your office at home and we will satellite you in. We will beam you in. Where do you want to visit today, Imam? China? All right, set up the satellite, contact Ho Chi Sing or whoever, and tell him Assalamu alaikum, because there's about 100 and something million Muslims over there in China, you know. Right. And let's have Imam W.D. Muhammad speak to China today, and then to Latin American countries next week. And he doesn't have to jump on a plane and get jet lag and have all of that contribute toward his physical demise. Because we didn't represent or recognize early enough that a 70-something-year-old man shouldn't be running around the country jumping on airplanes and jets. That's too taxing on a body that age. So we have to be smarter. And our teenagers represent that creative mind. See, J. Edgar Hoover, I hate to digress like this, but it's important. J. Edgar Hoover, the infamous former head of the FBI, said in a very famous memo, internal memo at first, and it became known to us during the Freedom of Information Act of 1977. If it weren't for that Freedom of Information Act, we wouldn't know this. He said to other agents that we have to stop the rise of a black Messiah. And he pinpointed where he thought that Messiah would be age-wise. He said that that Messiah would have its majority of influence among our youth. That it would, that Messiah and what that Messiah was teaching would galvanize our youth. So they were always concerned that our young people would come into the helm of leadership with a mind and a direction different than the one that the establishment was selling them. So you are actually our most prized possession as an age group, because you represent the beginning blossom of a garden that we just seeded. We just put the seeds there. You represent the beginning of the blossoming of that garden. And they do not want that garden to become full grown, because then the world will see its beauty and want to be in there. So they cut you off at the past, as they used to say in the Old West. The past. That's where most of us are right now, in the past. All right. Yes. Yes, the age group is, for teenagers, is 13 to 19 in the West. I'm sorry, say that, repeat that again. Right, okay. The Hoover plan, okay, I understand now. The Hoover plan was aimed at the youth. He didn't specify any particular age group. He only said the youth. Yeah, he only said the youth, but we do know that the Hoover plan did not allow several of our leaders to live to the 40th year. that Martin Luther King and Malcolm X died at 39. And we do know that 40 is an age when many of the messengers became prophets, like Muhammad the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at 40. And we do know that Hoover was using a religious term when he said black messiah. Here's a governmental leader using a religious term. So what do they understand about religious terminology that we don't understand? Those are the questions that we need to ask, but we won't go there today. Now, let's make the connection between Iblis and Pharaoh. And we'll conclude on that. And the other things that I wanted to speak on will be spoken of within the context of that. Now, write this word down. Pharaoh. P-H-A-R-A-O-H. P-H-A-R-A-O-H. Pharaoh. And next to it, put its Arabic transliterated equivalent. Fir'aun. Everybody say that with me. Fir'aun. 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 Spell it F-I-R apostrophe A-W-N. Just remember to pronounce it aun. Fir'aun. Right. Okay. Now the points I'm going to make related to this connection are very important, so pay attention, please. And we thank Allah for the patience that you are having, both here and abroad. And inshallah, this would have been worth your while, your time and your attention, and your sacrifices. Now, we spoke about the letter Ra. And a couple of weeks ago, we spoke also about the letter Lam, which in English would be the R and the L. The R and the L. Earlier, we were talking about the interchangeability of certain consonants. And I mentioned, for the sake of those of you who may have logged on late or come to the class late, that the B and the F are interchangeable, according to what is called Grimm's Law. G-R-I-M-M'-S-L-A-W. And that is the famous Grimms of the Brothers Grimm. The Brothers Grimm. Nursery rhymes and fairy tales. That shows you what I told you earlier, that we think these people are just into comedy and things that are not heavy. But here you have a man who was, his name was Jacob Grimm, that brother, who developed a system of linguistics that the whole world, the whole Western world at least, is still following and supporting. And all he did was peep the Fitrah. Because the Fitrah within your mouth tells you what consonants are associated with other consonants. Now we're going to go through this so that this won't be brain science for anyone. We said earlier that the B, and the F are both labials because you have to touch your lips in order to pronounce them. Also the letter P. Those three letters are labials. B, P, F. So, along with the letter R, for R, your tongue has to just brush the top of your palate, your top palate. If you pronounce it correctly, like people do in the Latin-speaking countries, where they roll it a little bit, you can feel the air up there towards the top of your palate. R, right? R. Now, the letter L, right? Your tongue also touches the top of your palate. Because of that, the R and the L are considered palatals. I'm going to spell that for you. P-A-L-A-T-A-L-S. That's one among those 7 groups of articulation that we spoke about earlier. Palatals. So you have in some Asian countries, there are some Asians, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, that can't pronounce, in other words, they pronounce their R's as L's and their L's as R's. So again, I think it's Chinese, they might say, we want to go to America. America instead of America. While those in Japan will say hello instead of hello.
White lice.
Right. Well, I hope not.
White lice.
All right. So the R and the L are interchangeable. Now, keep that in mind. So when you see the name Fitrah, the first 2 consonants you see are F and R, right? Mm-hmm. Take out the I, that's a vowel. You see F, R. And if you can interchange B with F and interchange L with R, you now have BL. Now in the name Iblis is BL. In the name Fitrah is FR. But they represent the same connection. The same connection. All right, let's move on. Speaking on this FR, I told you also a couple of weeks ago that when you see this combination of letters, F and R together, it represents that which separates. It represents separation from a central location or point. There are many kinds of separation. FR represents separation from a particular point. So if I use the word far in English, you can see how far is separated from near. I need to make a correction. FR is not separation from a central point. FR is separation based on contrast, meaning far, near. If I said, he is coming from home, F-R-O-M, that means he is no longer home, he is coming from home, and he is contrasted now with home. Wherever he is contrasted with where he was. You got that? So when they use words like fear, they create fear in the public. Understand that they're separating you from something. Right? Allah says that they threaten you with poverty and bid you to conduct unseeming. Yeah, they're separating you from something when they put you under fear. They're separating you from your good senses.
Yes, sir.
And Allah says, for the believers there shall be no fear nor grief. Because Allah reestablishes in you your good senses. And your good senses tell you that Allah is always in control. Always in control. All right. So the ego has a problem in its inception because it listens to faulty logic. That's the first point. That was Iblis's problem. Iblis was not motivated by truth per se. Iblis was motivated by his own impulses. Now you see in the word impulse, the word pulse, P-U-L-S-E, and you see where P is also a labial. So the PL is also interchangeable with the BL. And in fact, the pulse has the P, the L, and the S, right? Just like Iblis has the B, the L, and the S. And Iblis is a symbol of impulse, the impulsive nature in man. We think it's an outside entity. We think Iblis is a character that lived however many thousands and thousands of years ago that had a conversation with the Lord of all the worlds. We think they were sitting down at the table or whatever, or in the park, and Allah said, Malaka, what's up with you? That you did not make sajda to my creature when I bid you to make sajda. And we think Iblis responded to him, I'm better than him. You created me from fire and created him from tin. And then he said, well, now, Allah said, well, you that kind of mind can't stay here. You got to get out of here. Right? Like a sensible parent would do. You can't talk to me like that up in my house. Right? Now, you got to pack your bags or leave without them, but you got to go. And he said, well, because you've put me out. Now, you see his faulty logic? He behaved in a way to get himself put out. But he blames the one that he is bucking for putting him out. That's right. Now, because you put me out, here's what I'm... Now, imagine your child. You say, well, listen, you can't be cussing and fussing up in my house like this. I'm asking you to... I'm the authority in the house, child. Now, here's what I want you to do. I am going to do such and such and so and so. And that child says, well, that ain't going to work. Right? Why are you going to bring a babysitter in here? I'm old enough to take care of the house. I'm old enough to watch my younger brothers and sisters. You say, well, no, I'm not entrusting you with that. I'm going to bring an adult in here to supervise in my absence. And the child says, I can do better than the babysitter. Babysitter ain't nothing. I'm better than the babysitter. And starts yapping, and you say, well, hold on. And you say, well, there ain't no hold on. And you say, well, hold on. No. You got to get up out of here. You get out of my face with that. Right? And the child says, now, because you put me out, here's what I'm going to do. And they start telling you what they're going to... Imagine your parents' sensibilities. If there was a flight of stairs, that's where they'd be, right? At the bottom. But Allah maintains cool, so to speak. Allah doesn't even raise his voice. Listen to the temperament, the emotional temperament of that conversation. Allah doesn't even get excited. Iblis is ranting and raving. And Allah says that he became inflated. Yeah. Istakbara, right? Istakbara. Kabir. He became bigger than himself. He started to perceive himself as being bigger than he was. Now that was Pharaoh's problem also, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you that Pharaoh is a revolutio. R-E-V-O-L-U-T-I-O. Like revolution without the N on the end. Pharaoh is a revolutio. Revolutio means that the same story is being told with additional information under different names and titles. In the Bible, Noah is a revolutio of Adam. Adam was put in a garden. Noah was put in a vineyard. Adam was put asleep. Noah became drunk. This is the Bible. Now, don't confuse that with the Quran. That's the schemers added that to the Bible. But nevertheless, Noah is a revolutio of Adam. All right. So, getting back to Iblis. So Allah said, you have to leave here. This is not a place for you. This is not a place for that kind of mentality. And Iblis went on to outline what he was going to do specifically to this new creation called Khalifa. I'm going to come from before them, from behind them, from their right, and from their left. And when I am finished, very few of them will escape my plan. Only the purified ones, the mukhlisin in one case. And Allah said, that's all well and good with me. This way obligates me to keep it straight. I will fill hell with all of those who follow you. Now that might sound harsh to some ears. But it's only harsh because you are not understanding that Allah gave each individual the apparatus to escape Satan's scheme. And somewhere along the way, you had to make a conscious decision to follow the devil. Because your natural instincts and your natural promptings and your natural impulses are alarmed when things that work against your better growth and development are presented to you. That's why a child knows naturally when somebody is out to harm them, in most cases. Sometimes they have a sense, and they don't even want to be around certain adults or even certain other children. Allah put that, even the baby that can't articulate has that sense and will cry when certain adults come around. You don't know why the baby's crying. The baby's soul sense is sensing something that is not good for it in that particular person. So this is the situation for Iblis. Now, fast forwarding to Fir'aun. Now, the root for the word Fir'aun is Fara'ah. And if you're transliterating, put F-A-R-A apostrophe A. I'll spell it again. F-A-R-A apostrophe A. And that apostrophe is so that you can distinguish the Ain from the Aleph in English. Fara'ah. Fara'ah. Now, Fara'ah means branches. B-R-A-N-C-H-E-S. Now, I know all of this can get kind of confusing, but just follow me. Say, well, what does Pharaoh have to do with branches? Because Pharaoh is a description of what takes place in the manipulation of language and knowledge. And just as the sciences have branches, Fir'aun is representative of the sciences. But sciences that have been manipulated to the point where they no longer reflect the root ideas in the Fitrah. So there was a point not that long ago when science, Western science, said emphatically blacks are physically inferior. And we can prove it scientifically. See, that was a branch out of Fir'aun's tree. But they made it a scientific point to say that blacks were genetically and physically and biologically inferior, except for some of the physical things we could do, and that was only because we were the closest to the ape in the evolutionary scale. But mentally, morally, and spiritually, we were no match for the white race, quote unquote. And that science was only recently debunked by your Dr. Francis Welsings, Cress Welsings, and people who were bold enough to stand up to these so-called doctors and debate them on television and in other forums. All right? So what I'm saying is that what you know to be today in the world of academia as human sciences, social sciences, and even the physical sciences are not necessarily that, or is not necessarily that which reflects what Allah put in his natural creation. Remember, he said a good word, a goodly word is as a goodly tree, but a bad word is as a bad tree. So there's good language environments, there are good language environments, and there are corrupt language environments. Both of them produce branches. Fir'aun's objective was to go up, right? He said, Haman, build me a ladder so that I can mount up to the heavens to see what God this is Moses keeps talking about, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm the only head honcho around here. What God? I'm God. That's what Pharaoh was saying, essentially. Okay? But his yearning was to go up. To go up. To go up. Because he represented those branches. So what we're saying with this is what? the key to correcting that problem in society is to diligently study the behavioral nature in natural creation. What again we're calling Fitrah. Our religion, properly called Al-Islam, can also properly be called Fitrah. Deen al-Fitrah it's called in the Quran, as well as Deen al-Islam. And I believe that if we were to put due concentration on Deen al-Fitrah as a conscious concept, that it will do us more good than simply seeing it as Deen al-Islam. Because the term Islam has been given many, many different shades of meaning. And because of recent happenings related to the Muslim world, has actually taken a black eye. You go around now talking about Islam, people will move away from you quick. But if you introduce a new term, they say, well, what religion is that? I follow the religion of Fitrah. What's Fitrah? What is that? What is that? You're a vegetarian? I mean, what is... Now you got a chance to explain. By the time you finish explaining and then you equate that with Al-Islam in the Quran, people will have very little if no problem at all. Say, no, Fitrah is just the natural pattern that everything has. We know when you study how the sun comes up, how it goes down, how the moon comes out, how it grows in stages. All of these different phenomena that we see in created matter, and then begin to relate that to our own growth and development. I told you earlier that the ancient Egyptians saw the sun as being a symbol of the subconscious mind and the moon as a symbol of the conscious mind. That's why the West calls man M-A-N and calls moon M-O-O-N and calls man mind, which is M-I-N with a D added. Imam Muhammad taught us man means mind. So if man is related to moon, then moon is related to mind, and mind is your conscious thought. And the moon typifies what happens in your conscious mind. It grows in stages and it leaves you in stages. And puts you in the dark all over again. They say back to the drawing board. That's the blackboard, right?
Yes.
And the ancient Arabs worshipped the moon god named Min. They don't want to tell you that. They worshipped the moon god before Islam, Al-Islam, called Min. And before that, they were worshiping a god called Sin. You can look up all this information if that's your thing. They worshipped a god called Sin as well as a god called Min. And Min in Arabic means from.
Yeah.
See, Allah preserved the best of the knowledge while getting rid of the shirk. So Min is preserved in the Quran, but it's reduced to a connection, right? Because there's up to a preposition, right? Min means to from. Min alaq. He created you from alaq. Well, how do they get that understanding? In the Fitrah, Min was the moon. And the moon gets its light where?
Sun.
From the sun. You understand? That's right. Yeah. The moon does not carry its own light, just like your conscious mind does not carry its own information. Your subconscious mind carries it.
That's tough.
Yeah.
That is.
All right. Let's wrap this up. Yeah. The real light is with the sun.
Yeah.
Just like the real body of information is with your subconscious and in your DNA material. Libraries of information and knowledge in your DNA. The little bit of information we learn from this world is what we call consciousness. And it's the difference between intelligence, and intellect.
Right.
That'll be my final point, and we're going to have to continue on Pharaoh. There's too much to discuss on Pharaoh for me to give him just a couple of minutes. But suffice it to say this, that there is a difference between intelligence, spell the word intelligence, INTELLIGENCE. Now I want you to break it down where I tell you to break it down. Break it down after IN, put a slash. TELLI, put a slash. And leave GENCE. Now under in, write the word internal. Under the word or letters TELLI, put communication. That's what a telephone is, right? A telegraph, right? Teleprompter. Those are things that communicate. And under gents, put genes. GENES. So intelligence is the internal communication of your genes. That means that every human being is born with intelligence. The schools don't give it to you. Allah gave it to you. Allah gave you native intelligence in your DNA package. That's how the baby knows to suck. That's how we know to do all of these things that schools and parents don't necessarily teach us. Allah taught us. The intellect is different. Break this word down here, spelling it INTELLECT. Break it down, INT, and leave the ELLECT, understanding that L is L whether it's doubled or not. Under INT, put internal, and under elect, choices. That's what an election is, choices. So the intellect represents internal choosing. And that's all your intellect is. It chooses to take this in and chooses to leave that out. That's what you do. And what there's another word for that though. It's called moral decision making. You understand? It's called rational choices. Moral and rational. That's why they put the double L there. See, we say, well, why did elect only has one L? But in the intellect, they know that there are two legs. Moral choices and rational choices. They clocked it into the development of the letter, of the word itself. You got it? So that is the intellect. So the intellect is based on what you take in on the moral and rational level. That makes you truly human. But every creature has intelligence, humans and non-humans. And in fact, scientists are finding that matter itself, whether it be animate or inanimate, has intelligence. They thought that amoeba was just responding to impulse. They are now discovering that amoeba is not merely responding to impulse, but amoeba actually has intelligence. Because when they put it under other kinds of circumstances where impulse should have driven it to do certain things, it didn't do it because it wasn't in its best interest. So I hate to leave this world, people, and have to face Allah having made decisions that were worse than what the amoeba made. Because here we are as human beings running full-fledged into brick walls, knowing that it's not in our best interest. The amoeba says,